Cupcake. General Harrison's voice boomed across the flight briefing room, his weathered face twisting into a condescending smirk. They gave a fighter pilot the call sign Cupcake? The room erupted in laughter as he pointed at 26-year-old Captain Maya Rodriguez's name on the mission board. What's next, sending teddy bears into combat? But when 12 enemy fighters appeared on radar screens over hostile territory that day, Cupcake would achieve something no pilot had accomplished in 25 years of modern aerial warfare, and prove that underestimating someone based on their call sign could be a fatal mistake. The pre-dawn briefing room at Al Udeid Air Base buzzed with tension before every combat mission over Syria. 24 of America's finest fighter pilots sat in metal chairs, their flight suits covered with patches from elite squadrons. At the front stood General Robert Harrison, a legendary pilot whose career spanned 3 decades. His chest displayed ribbons from Desert Storm, Afghanistan and Iraq, a walking museum of American air power. But his eyes were fixed on one name that seemed to amuse him greatly. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Harrison announced, his voice dripping with barely concealed contempt, "meet Captain Maya Rodriguez, call sign Cupcake. Fresh out of advanced training, top of her class, and apparently someone's idea of a joke." The snickers that rippled through the room were like daggers to Maya's chest. At 26, she was younger than most pilots in the room, smaller at 5 feet 4 inches, and the only woman among the assembled aviators. Her dark hair was pulled back in regulation style, her brown eyes showed determination that had carried her through years of doubt and discrimination. "Tell me, Cupcake," General Harrison continued, emphasizing her call sign like it was something distasteful, "how exactly did you earn that particular designation? Did you bake cookies for your instructors?" More laughter filled the room. Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady. "Sir, during training I had a tendency to make difficult maneuvers look easy. My instructor said I made air combat look as simple as decorating cupcakes, so the name stuck." "How adorable," Harrison replied with mock sweetness. "Well, Cupcake, today you'll be flying wing position for Major Stevens. Try to keep up and don't get in the way when the real pilots are working." Major Tom Stevens, a veteran pilot with 15 years of experience, shot Maya a sympathetic look. He'd watched her performance during training exercises and knew the mockery was undeserved. But in the military hierarchy, junior officers didn't contradict generals, even when those generals were being unfair. The mission briefing continued with Harrison outlining their objectives: escort a reconnaissance aircraft over Syrian airspace, provide air support for ground forces, and engage any enemy aircraft that threatened the operation. Intelligence suggested minimal air resistance, maybe 2 or 3 Syrian fighters at most. "This should be a milk run," Harrison concluded. "Perfect for breaking in our new Baker." As the pilots filed out to their aircraft, Maya overheard the whispered conversations that followed her like shadows. "Great, we're babysitting a rookie on a combat mission," muttered Captain Jake Walsh, a pilot known for his aggressive flying style and even more aggressive personality. "I heard she only got through training because of diversity quotas," added Lieutenant Commander Rick Torres, his voice carrying just loud enough for Maya to hear. "Probably never even seen real combat." "My money says she turns back at the first sign of trouble," Captain Walsh replied. "These pretty girls always crack under pressure." Maya's hands clenched into fists, but she forced herself to keep walking. She'd heard variations of these comments throughout her military career. In flight school, during advanced training, even from some of her instructors. The doubt, the assumption that she didn't belong, the constant need to prove herself over and over again. What none of them knew was that Maya Rodriguez had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Born in East Los Angeles to a family of mechanics, Maya had grown up in her father's auto shop, learning engines before she could properly read. Her father, a former Air Force mechanic, had filled her childhood with stories of aircraft and aerial combat. When other girls were playing with dolls, Maya was building model planes and dreaming of supersonic flight. But dreaming and achieving were different things. The path to becoming a fighter pilot was brutal enough for men; for women, it was nearly impossible. Maya had endured years of discrimination, harassment, and doubt. She'd been told repeatedly that she wasn't strong enough, wasn't aggressive enough, wasn't cut out for the demands of aerial combat. She'd proven them wrong at every step. In flight school, she'd graduated first in her class in both academics and flight performance. During advanced training, she'd achieved the highest scores in air-to-air combat simulations. Her reflexes were lightning fast, her tactical thinking was brilliant, and her flying skills were exceptional. But none of that mattered to the men who saw only her gender and her unfortunate call sign. As Maya performed her pre-flight inspection of her F-16 Fighting Falcon, she ran through the familiar ritual that centered her mind. Every rivet, every control surface, every weapon system, she checked it all with methodical precision. This aircraft was her weapon, her shield, and her lifeline rolled into one sophisticated piece of technology. "Hey, Cupcake," Captain Walsh called from his nearby aircraft. "You sure you know which end of that thing goes forward?" Maya didn't respond. She'd learned that engaging with bullies only encouraged them. Instead, she continued her inspection with professional focus. Major Stevens approached her aircraft with a concerned expression. "Maya, ignore them. They're just nervous about flying with someone new. Prove yourself in the air and they'll come around." "I plan to, sir," Maya replied quietly. "Good. Stay on my wing, follow my lead, and remember your training. This is just another training exercise but with real consequences." As Maya strapped herself into the cockpit of her F-16, she felt the familiar surge of excitement and fear that preceded every flight. The aircraft around her was worth $30 million and could accelerate from 0 to Mach 2 in minutes. Armed with a 20mm cannon and air-to-air missiles, it was one of the most lethal weapons ever created. But it was only as good as the pilot flying it. The engines roared to life across the flight line as 24 F-16s prepared for takeoff. Maya ran through her systems checks with practiced efficiency, her hands moving over controls that had become second nature through thousands of hours of training. "Tower, this is Viper Flight requesting clearance for takeoff." General Harrison's voice came through her headset. "Viper Flight, you are cleared for takeoff. Runway 23, winds 180 at 15 knots. One by one, the fighters accelerated down the runway and lifted into the pre-dawn sky. Maya's turn came, and she felt the familiar thrill as her aircraft left the ground and climbed toward their mission altitude of 25,000 feet. "Viper 12, this is Viper 1. General Harrison's voice crackled through the radio. "Maintain position and try not to embarrass us." "Roger, Viper 1, Maya replied, keeping her voice professional despite the continued disrespect. For the first hour of the mission, everything proceeded according to plan. The formation flew through clear skies toward their objective area, maintaining radio silence except for essential communications. Maya flew perfect formation on Major Stevens' wing, matching his every maneuver with precision that would have impressed anyone paying attention. But nobody was paying attention to the pilot they'd already written off. That changed when the radar operator's urgent voice filled their headsets. "Viper Flight, this is Watchtower. We have multiple bandits approaching your position from the northeast. Count 12 enemy fighters, estimated time to contact 4 minutes." The calm efficiency of the formation suddenly exploded into controlled chaos as pilots began checking weapons systems and adjusting positions for air-to-air combat. 12 fighters. General Harrison's voice carried surprise and concern. Intelligence said minimal air resistance. Confirmed, Viper 1. 12 Syrian MiG-29s approaching fast. They've got you outnumbered 2-1. Maya felt her heart rate spike as adrenaline flooded her system. This was it, her first real air-to-air combat engagement. Everything she trained for, everything she dreamed of, was about to be tested in the most unforgiving arena imaginable. "All flights, this is Viper 1, Harrison commanded. "Spread defensive formation. Engage at maximum range. Watch your fuel and ammunition." But as the enemy fighters appeared on radar screens, closing distance rapidly, it became clear that the American formation was in serious trouble. Outnumbered 2-1, caught in enemy airspace with limited fuel for extended combat, the tactical situation was grim. That's when Maya Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything. "Viper 1, this is Viper 12, she called over the radio, her voice calm despite the approaching danger. "Request permission to execute flanking maneuver Charlie." "Negative, Viper 12. Maintain formation and follow orders." But Maya had spotted something on her radar that the others had missed. The enemy formation was flying in a tight group, perfect for a tactical maneuver she'd perfected during training. A high-speed approach from an unexpected angle that could disrupt their entire attack. "Sir, with respect, I can split their formation and give us tactical advantage." "I said maintain formation, Cupcake. This isn't flight school." Maya looked at her radar display, calculating distances, speeds, and angles with the mathematical precision that had made her the top graduate in her class. The enemy fighters were 30 seconds from weapon range. In another minute, they'd be in perfect position to engage the American formation with devastating effect. Unless someone did something unexpected. "Viper 12 breaking formation," Maya announced, banking her F-16 into a steep climb that took her above and behind the enemy formation. Cupcake, get back in formation. Harrison shouted, his voice filled with rage and disbelief. But Maya was already committed. She pushed her aircraft to maximum speed, climbing to 35,000 feet before rolling inverted and diving toward the enemy formation like a missile. Her radar warning receiver screamed as enemy fighters locked onto her, but she ignored the warnings, focusing entirely on her attack approach. The Syrian pilots never saw her coming. Maya's first missile struck the lead enemy fighter before they even knew she was there. Her second missile destroyed another MiG before the formation could react. In the space of 30 seconds, she'd eliminated 2 enemy aircraft and thrown their entire tactical plan into chaos. Holy shit. Major Stevens' voice crackled through the radio. Cupcake just nailed 2 bandits. But Maya wasn't finished. As the enemy formation scattered to deal with her unexpected attack, she continued her dive, switching to her 20mm cannon for close-range combat. Her F-16 screamed through the confused enemy formation, her cannon firing with deadly accuracy. Another MiG exploded in a ball of fire. Then another. In the space of 2 minutes, Captain Maya Rodriguez had single-handedly destroyed 4 enemy fighters and scattered the remaining 8 in complete disarray. The tactical situation had shifted from desperate defense to complete American air superiority. Jesus Christ, Captain Walsh breathed over the radio. Did anyone else see that? General Harrison's voice came through the radio, but for the first time since Maya had met him, it carried a note of respect. Viper 12? Outstanding work. All flights, press the attack. What followed was an aerial engagement that would be studied in military academies for decades. Maya's unexpected assault had caught the enemy completely off guard, allowing the American fighters to engage from advantageous positions. Within 10 minutes, all 12 enemy fighters had been destroyed or driven off, and Maya Rodriguez had personally accounted for 6 of them. As the formation regrouped for the flight home, the radio chatter was filled with amazement and respect. Cupcake, where the hell did you learn to fly like that? Captain Walsh asked, his earlier mockery replaced by genuine admiration. That was the most incredible flying I've seen in 15 years, Major Stevens added. Those maneuvers were textbook perfect. But it was General Harrison's voice that carried the most meaning. Viper 12, when we get back to base, report to my office. We need to talk. Maya's heart sank. She'd broken formation, disobeyed direct orders, and acted without authorization. Despite her success, she was probably facing court-martial and the end of her flying career. The flight back to base seemed to take forever. Maya replayed the engagement in her mind, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. Yes, her tactics had worked perfectly. Yes, she'd saved the entire formation from potential disaster. But military discipline was built on following orders, not individual heroics. When they landed at Al Udeid, Maya was surprised to find a crowd waiting on the flight line. Word of the engagement had spread quickly, and ground crews, maintenance personnel and off-duty pilots had gathered to see the pilots who'd achieved such a decisive victory. As Maya climbed out of her cockpit, she was immediately surrounded by people wanting to know details of the combat. But her attention was focused on General Harrison, who was walking toward her with an unreadable expression. Captain Rodriguez, he said formally, and Maya's heart sank further. The use of her rank instead of her call sign seemed ominous. Sir, she replied, coming to attention. Walk with me. They moved away from the crowd to a quiet area near the hangars. General Harrison stopped and turned to face her, his weathered face serious. Maya, he said, using her first name for the first time, in 30 years of flying, I've never seen anything like what you did up there today. Maya held her breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. You disobeyed direct orders, Harrison continued. You broke formation without authorization. You put yourself at enormous risk. Yes, sir. And you saved the entire mission. Possibly saved lives. Definitely prevented what could have been a military disaster. Harrison paused, studying her face carefully. Do you know what the previous record was for enemy aircraft destroyed in a single engagement by an American fighter pilot? No, sir. 5 fighters shot down by Captain Rick Williams in 1998 during operations over Kosovo. That record stood for 25 years. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. Today you destroyed 6 enemy aircraft in a single engagement. You've broken a combat record that many people thought would never be broken in modern warfare. The general extended his hand to Maya, a gesture of respect between equals. Captain Rodriguez, it's an honor to serve with you. And I formally apologize for my earlier comments. I judged you based on preconceptions and prejudices that had no basis in reality. Maya shook his hand, hardly believing what she was hearing. Furthermore, Harrison continued, I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Flying Cross and immediate promotion to Major. Your performance today represents the finest tradition of American military aviation. As word of Maya's record-breaking achievements spread through the base, the transformation in how people treated her was immediate and complete. The same pilots who had mocked her call sign that morning were now seeking her out for advice and respect. Captain Walsh approached her later that evening with genuine humility. Maya, I owe you an apology. What I said this morning was unprofessional and wrong. You're a hell of a pilot and I'd be honored to fly on your wing anytime. Similar apologies came from throughout the squadron. The young woman they dismissed as Cupcake had become the most respected pilot on the base overnight. 3 months later, Major Maya Rodriguez stood before a new class of fighter pilot trainees, wearing the silver oak leaves of her new rank and the distinctive ribbon of the Distinguished Flying Cross on her chest. Her call sign had evolved too. Instead of Cupcake, she was now known as Six Shooter, in honor of her record-breaking performance. Ladies and gentlemen, she addressed the assembled trainees, some of you will face doubt, discrimination and prejudice during your careers. Some of you will be underestimated because of your gender, your background, or even something as simple as a call sign that others find amusing. She paused, looking out at the faces that included both men and women from diverse backgrounds. But remember this, respect is earned in the air, not on the ground. Your performance speaks louder than any prejudice. And sometimes, being underestimated can be your greatest tactical advantage. In the back of the classroom, General Harrison watched with pride as the pilot he'd once mocked shared her hard-earned wisdom with the next generation. He'd learned a valuable lesson that day over Syria, that true strength often comes in unexpected packages, and that laughing at someone's call sign might be the last mistake you ever make. Maya Rodriguez had proven that when you're willing to risk everything for what's right, when you trust your training over others' expectations, and when you refuse to let anyone else define your limits, you can achieve the impossible. She'd taken a call sign meant to diminish her and turned it into a symbol of excellence. She'd faced down 12 enemy fighters and emerged victorious. Most importantly, she'd shown that heroism has no gender, no size requirement and no predetermined appearance. Sometimes the most dangerous pilot in the sky is the one everyone underestimates. And sometimes the person they're laughing at today becomes the legend they're studying tomorrow. The call sign Cupcake had become synonymous with courage, skill, and the finest traditions of American military aviation. And Maya Rodriguez had proven that you should never judge a fighter pilot by her call sign, because she might just break a 25-year combat record while you're still laughing. If you enjoyed this story of courage and determination, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring military stories. Share your experiences of overcoming underestimation in the comments below. Remember, your critics today might become your biggest supporters tomorrow, but only if you stay focused on excellence rather than their expectations.